My name is Jeremy Devins, and welcome back to the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast. I have a special, exciting announcement today I'll talk about in just a moment. We're going to look at the transits coming up for the week ahead. And as always, if you want to know how this affects you personally, get your free birth chart at quietmindastrology.com. And now you can get the monthly review process, which is great to do at the beginning of the month or around the new moon coming up in about 2 weeks from now. It's at quietmindastrology.com/monthly review, or in the show notes. All you got to do is leave an honest review on Apple Podcasts or Video Ask, and I'll send you this monthly review process, which is really, really highly recommended. So I get a lot of value out of that myself in planning for my own month ahead with astrology and some deep inquiry processes, which I love to do. So as everything is going retrograde this month, quick announcement here at the beginning is that I've been reassessing and reevaluating my offers as well. And I've been very fortunate to watch this podcast grow to thousands of listeners around the world and get great feedback all the time. And I want to make it even better. And one of those things is knowing that a lot of our listeners now are around the world, in Australia and in time zones where you don't get the podcast until Tuesday, but it's meant to be a weekly forecast for the week ahead. So now I will be doing these on Friday and calling it the Friday forecast because I like alliteration. So the Friday forecast also gives you time to plan for the week ahead on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, or even Monday if you still prefer that. But I was posting them on Monday nights here in US time, Mexico time where I am now. But now you'll have access to it earlier, and you can plan your week around it. They'll be posting every Friday at 5 a.m. Pacific time now, so you can plan your week around it, more structure to planning with the horoscopes. And that also allows me space to offer some other things, which I'll be announcing in future episodes. But so we have Friday forecast. That leaves the space for other possible astrology episodes and topics on other days of the week. If there's specific things you'd like to learn and see more, let me know. Send me a message at connect@quietmindastrology.com, and I will have some fun announcements about that coming up soon. So let's talk about the Friday forecast on this new format now, coming up for the coming week ahead. And we'll be starting these, so basically the Sunday ahead to the following Sunday. That might adjust a little bit. It might be Friday to Friday. We'll see how it goes. But right now, as we're already moving into this new format a little bit, we'll start with Sunday. And no, we're still in the retrograde time, so I might need to revise this a little bit. But it actually is something that's been in the works for a long time. So anything during retrograde, if you have been on the fence or thinking about it or reassessing it or working on it for a long time already, and you want to revise it, that fits for the retrograde time. It's just the completely new things. Like if I was going to start a completely new podcast about a new topic during the retrograde time, that would be very arduous, very difficult, not recommended. Or these kind of things during retrogrades are generally not recommended. But if it's something that you've had in the works for a while, or you want to refresh or revisit or revise, these are the kind of things to do during retrogrades, and I'm doing myself as well. So let's talk about what's happening this week. We just have technically one notable transit, and it's a big one, and I'm going to talk about it quite a bit and do sign-by-sign horoscopes for it. Adding on to what I've done in the last few episodes about Venus retrograde, because that's what it is. It's Venus going back to Cancer on August 6th and Sunday, August 6th. Venus goes back to Cancer into the sign, the nakshatra of Aslesha. And what does this mean? So on a general level, let's talk about that. Venus in Cancer, retrograde, going back to things that nurtured us in the past. For me personally, I just turned on some old music I haven't listened to in a long time. I know a lot of the listeners might not relate to this part, but I grew up listening to like a lot of the heavy music, like System of a Down in the late 90s, which I still think is incredible. And I just listened to that album again for the first time in many years. And was like, wow, this is still really good to me. You know, I know not everyone listening is into that kind of music, but Venus retrograde in Cancer is like going back to the music that felt like familiar to you, something you grew up with, something from your past. Venus is art, beauty, expression, music, entertainment. Cancer is a sense of home and nourishment and enjoyment. And retrograde is like going back to those things. And specifically in Aslesha, it's like going into the depths of things and deeper transformational kind of art, music, entertainment, sensuality, sexuality, expression, relational energy, connecting with your partner in a way where you uncover deep relational historical things. Because I'm talking about both of these transits the same, and as you see on the screen, if you're watching the video or YouTube, we're going to go through the signs. Venus in Aslesha in Cancer, retrograde. 25 days there, so just over 3 weeks of this time to go back over these things. Another thing I'm doing personally is I'm going to a retreat here in Mexico all about relationships and learning from the past relationships, healing relationship wounds, these kind of things. This kind of work is never really done. I've done a lot of it myself, but it's like brushing our teeth. Personal growth work, I think, is like brushing our teeth or going to sleep. Just because you brushed your teeth yesterday and slept yesterday doesn't mean you're done. It means you did it for the day. And same with personal growth work and all this kind of stuff. It's like just because you did it once a few years ago or you've been in therapy, that's wonderful, but there may be other layers to explore. There may be deeper things to realize and uncover. And for someone like me, with all the eighth house stuff I have, there always is more, and I'm always interested in more. But you may not have that same drive and that same interest. And that means that you might not have as much drive for those kind of things. But there is still that level of truth to it, no matter what your placements in your chart are, that personal growth work and personal awareness, svadhyaya, self-study, is a never-ending process. It's a continual thing, just like brushing our teeth, taking a shower, going to sleep. But these are things we need regularly to sort of keep our energy clean, to keep our ability to relate with Venus retrograde and relationships clearer and show up better for relationships, show up in integrity, in authenticity, in connection. And there's so much learning and growth that happens through relationships that we just can't do on our own. So the Venus retrograde is an opportunity to go back through that kind of work and learn from those things. Aslesha in particular is a deeply healing, transformational, powerful energy, as I talked about in the monthly horoscope. Check that one out if you haven't already. The sun is there in Aslesha as well, as I mentioned. So by going back to old patterns of relating and relationships and lessons and old music, old art, old creative expressions, time in nature, these kind of things give us power this month. They're incredibly empowering and invigorating with the sun being here as well, so that we find our sense of ourselves, the sun, the soul, S-O-U-L, but in Latin, in astronomy, it's actually the soul, S-O-L. So same kind of energy of the center of the universe, the center of our solar system, not the universe, center of the solar system, everything revolves around it. The center of ourselves that everything else revolves around. We're getting back in touch with that, re-empowering, reinvigorating that energy this month if we are doing that work. Now, the negative side of this could be intense. Aslesha can be very intense, and it can bring up some deep, I would say, like ugly stuff in relationships, like ugly patterns, things that you're just mean, hurtful, violent, aggressive at its worst. The Mars here is being ruled by the sun as well. Mars is like the violence and the aggression, and it's in Leo. This is all the negative side of it. We always have potential of positive, negative. We always have choice in what we emphasize, what we put our attention on. So if that stuff is coming out, the aggression, the hostility, fighting, conflict, the negative energy around relationships and aggression, that is one possibility here. And when you notice yourself going towards the negative expression of a transit, you can look to what are the possible positive expressions? How can I bring in some of that activity? One of them being physical activity, like exercising, the gym, exercise bands, weights, yoga, Pilates, anything physically challenging, going to satisfy that Mars energy and also help you feel empowered and invigorated and maybe more connected to your body. If there's some sort of physical, beautiful physical activity like yoga, which is all about poses and alignment, or Tai Chi, Qigong, sexual practices, tantric practices, these are all Venus, Mars kind of energies, and they bring out this emotional awareness in ourselves as well, and this solar energy of the sun, this power, the center of our power. So these are some powerful things that we can bring out in the relating and working with this energy this month. And you may know, like, the fight or flight response would be the more negative expression of this And then the other F that you do with a partner is the positive expression of this. I don't swear on this podcast. I know kids are listening, and I like to make sure it's family friendly here as well. But you know what I'm talking about. So let's go to the sign by sign interpretations for the moon and ascendants. So what does this mean specifically for you based on your moon and ascendant? And you'll want to know your Vedic moon and ascendant. If you don't, go to quietmindastrology.com, get your free birth chart. There's also a little training there that shows you how to read it. And then there's a 101 course you can take if you want to really know how to read your chart and decode it. But let's talk about it. And if you're watching the video or YouTube, you'll see as I move through the ascendants. So I'm just going to go through the signs, and that's going to apply for your moon and ascendant. Listen to both. Does not apply to Western astrology. If you know your Western chart, totally does not apply. Different stuff. So Aries first. Venus retrograde in the 4th house brings a focus on your domestic life, emotional security, and inner peace. You might feel a need to reconnect with family and find comfort within your home during this transit. And I need to say, should have said this first. So all the important dates. So I'm gonna circle back here. So all the important dates of this Venus transit. How long is this going on? When do you expect things? Like what to plan for? This is, first of all, the July 22nd at 6:31 p.m. Pacific. So when Venus paused and started its retrograde period in Magha at 4 degrees 25 minutes. So again, July 22nd, the Venus retrograde began. August 6th at 10:30 p.m. Pacific, Venus went to Cancer. That's what we're looking at today, this transit of Venus back to Cancer, out of Leo, back to Cancer. And in Aslesha Nakshatra, August 6th, 10:30 p.m. Pacific. Then on September 3rd, so this is when we start to move forward. September 3rd, 6:20 p.m. Pacific time, Venus pauses in Aslesha after going backwards for 26 days, roughly. Now it's starting to go forward. But it's retracing ground we've already been going over the last couple months. September 3rd, that's when it goes forward. Then October 1st, now it's back in Leo. So back where it was from August 6th. So basically from August 6th to October 1st, you're going back and then you land back at that same spot you were August 6th. Energetically, emotionally, relationally, you're in the same spot, but you're a new person internally. And then finally, October 7th at 2:40 a.m. Pacific, Venus is direct in Magha at 4 degrees 25 minutes, completing this whole retrograde cycle. But there's more to the story, and I talked about that in the last couple episodes, because Venus is in an interesting place for the next couple months, until the end of November. But those are the important dates. July 22nd, it retrograded. August 6th, it went back to Cancer. September 3rd, it pauses and starts to go direct in Cancer. October 1st, Venus is now in Magha in Leo again. Then October 7th, Venus is fully forward, fully out in the clear, out of the retrograde period. Important dates to plan around. All right, so now let's really go into the sign interpretations, and I'll give a brief little look at each one. So Aries, ascendant, and moon, like I mentioned, it's in your 4th house, focusing on your domestic home life, your emotional security, what feels like it brings you the sense of family and connection and inner peace. And an important time to reconnect with family and find comfort in your home. There may be some important issues to do with the home that need to be reassessed and reevaluated. For the Taurus, ascendant, and moon, Venus retrograde is in your 3rd house with the sun here, and you'll likely revisit communication issues and need to express emotions more effectively, communicate your emotions more clearly, and rehash some old issues. Time to reconnect with siblings and close friends during this time as well. And if there's any old hobbies that you love to do, you can go back to those at this time. For Gemini, ascendant, and moon, this is in your 2nd house of finances and self-worth. Time to reflect on your values and your money matters and avoid any impulsive spending during this time. You may want to suddenly buy something really nice and luxurious, but it's not the wisest thing unless it's something that's been in the works for a while. But time to go back over those issues with finances, slow down there, and bring more attention to them. For Cancer, Ascendant, and Moon, this is in your first house, your sense of self, making it a significant time for self-reflection and reevaluating your personal goals and identity. Focus on self-care and emotional healing during this time. This can be hugely transformational for you around relationships, huge breakthroughs to be had here. For Leo, Ascendant, and Moon, this is happening in your 12th house, triggering a need for solitude and spiritual reflection. And you may be having some sort of loss around relationship, potentially a breakup or separation, or needing space in a relationship. Ego death at its best. And it's time to reconnect with your inner self and let go of some emotional baggage that you've been carrying around. For Virgo, Ascendant, and Moon, this is in your 11th house. Time to focus on your social circles and group activities. Go back to friends, connections, people that you've connected with in the past who can help you understand yourself better, be around community, be in community, working on relational issues, and reassess your friendships and find emotional support within community. This is what I'm doing. I'm a Virgo Ascendant. I'll be in this training all about relational healing at this time. It's easy, definite hell yes for me to do that, knowing the transit especially, but just intuitively, when you practice this stuff and your intuition is sharpened, you kind of just know. And then Libra, Ascendant, and Moon, this is happening in your 10th house, may impact your career and public image. And it's time to reevaluate your professional goals and find emotional fulfillment in your career, in your vocation, in how you are seen in the public. And this is a time to take more energy inward, but not too much because the sun's still here. This is a time that you're likely to be in the spotlight, and it can be a vulnerable time. But you're doing the inner work, it can be really powerful as well. Scorpio, Ascendant, and Moon, this is happening over your 9th house and in Cancer. So this is time to trigger spiritual and philosophical introspection, reevaluating what beliefs that you hold and which ones you want to explore. Good time for reading books, listening to podcasts, exploring different ideas, talking to teachers that you love and value. Exploring your beliefs and seeking emotional growth through learning and travel. A favorable time for travel in a way that can bring about healing and growth. But there's potential for traveling to see an old partner that could be risky. Not the best time to do that, but there's lessons to be learned here. And, if you want a better story to tell, it's like it makes it a more interesting story if there's more ups and downs. So go for it. But just know, like, if it's about relationships and you're going traveling to see them, it's proceed with caution. Sagittarius, Ascendant, and Moon. Venus retrograde over your 8th house. This is the time to focus on emotional intimacy and shared resources and relationships. Time for deepening bonds with others. The time for connecting with what you love to do in your personal growth work. Astrology, spirituality, yoga, transformational work. This can be really, really powerful time for learning a lot in those areas and finding something you really love in those areas at a new level. For Capricorn, Ascendant, and Moon, this is happening over your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, and marriage. Time to reevaluate relationship dynamics and find emotional harmony with your partner. There may be some important issues to reassess with contracts, renegotiations, and renegotiating values and relationships, balancing the needs of self and other. With the sun here, there can be a lot of energy on the partner and risk of codependency issues. So be mindful of that, not to put too much energy onto the other person in your life at the expense of yourself. But this could help you reassess and bring clarity to how you want to show up in relationship. For Aquarius, Ascendant, and Moon, this is over your 6th house, bringing attention to your health and your daily routines and focus on self-care, finding emotional balance in your daily life, returning to things that you love to do on a daily practice or daily routines and rituals that you love, that especially things with partners that can bring about more emotional connection and harmony. For Pisces, Ascendant, and Moon, this is in your 5th house, bringing a focus on creativity, romance, and emotional expression. Time to reconnect with your inner child and find joy in your creative pursuits. Things that you loved as a kid, things that bring you happiness and fulfillment that you love to do. Creative projects just for the sake of creating, like making a mess just to make a mess. Have some fun, be explorative, do some arts and crafts. If you have children, you can do all these things with them bringing more play and joy and that spark of childlike curiosity back into your life at a new level. So that is our look at all of the ascendants and moons. Again, listen to both your ascendant and moon to hear how this transit is affecting you personally. And again, those important dates coming up. So July 22nd is when the retrograde began. August 6th, and we're back to Cancer, what we talked about today. September 3rd, it starts to move forward in Cancer. And then October 1st, it's out of Cancer into Leo. October 7th, we're fully out of the retrograde cycle, moving forward from where we started on July 22nd in a new level as a new person. But then there's more to the story, as I mentioned in the recent episodes. Check those out on the podcast or on YouTube. And if you have any questions, if you want to look at this personally for yourself, schedule a reading at quietmindastrology.com. I do have a couple spaces left still in August, or you can book for September. And get your free birth chart, quietmindastrology.com. Make sure you see how this affects you personally. And coming up soon, the Vedic Astrology Mentorship will be opening in a few short weeks, really, just over a month ahead. So stay tuned for that. More announcements on that coming up soon, and you can join the waitlist for that at quietmindastrology.com. We can also get free weekly horoscopes delivered to your inbox on now what is called Forecast Friday forecast. We'll see which one sticks more. And those will be coming every Friday at 5 a.m. Pacific time moving forward from today, so that you can plan for your week ahead, and more fun announcements coming up soon as well. Thanks for listening, and look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.